Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the STM podcast. Today, we are going to talk about a very interesting topic, which is the cellular war of the immune system. Basically, our immune system goes to a full-fledged war almost every second day of our lives, even without our conscious knowledge. We hear and talk a lot about immunity, but we hardly know how our immune system actually works. So in today's podcast, I'm going to delve into what really happens inside our bodies every time we are hurt, even if it is a minor paper cut. Get a seat and a tea or a coffee. This story of war and peace is more interesting than Bahubali. It is going to blow your mind, although frankly, your mind already knows it. So, the human immune system is the most complex biological system we know, after of course the human brain. It consists of hundreds of tiny organs and two large organs, that is the thymus and the spleen. It has its own transport network spread throughout your body through the lymph vessels. Every day, it makes hundreds of billions of fresh cells organized like an army with soldiers, captains, intelligence officers, heavy weapons, and crazy suicide bombers. Your immune system is you, that is, your biology protecting you from the billions of microorganisms that want to consume you and from a few of your own cells that turn into cancer. It is so detailed and so complex that it is impossible to cover in one episode, so we will talk about it in numerous other episodes. Today, we are just going to know what happens when your body is invaded and your immune defense begins a fight for life and death. It's a beautiful day and you are just walking in a garden. You try to pluck a rose and suddenly you are now looking at your bleeding thumb that you just cut on a thorn. You think to yourself, how annoying. But inside the wound, a horrible catastrophe has happened. There are dead cells and blood and dirt everywhere. Even worse, countless bacteria have entered the gaps between your cells, trying to find their new homes and to steal your resources. Immediately, the first stage of your defense kicks in. The cells of your body that have been hurt and are dying scream in panic and release chemical alarm signals to awaken your immune system. When your immune system awakes, the first cells to show up are the macrophages. To comprehend its size, let me tell you that if an average human cell were the size of a human, a macrophage would be the size of a rhinoceros. Macrophages get really angry when they see bacteria. Within seconds, the macrophages attack the bacteria and begin killing them without any mercy. They stretch out their body parts like the arms of an octopus and grab the bacteria to swallow them whole and to digest them alive. A macrophage can eat up to 100 bacteria before getting exhausted, but there are just too many enemies. Now the macrophages call for reinforcements. In your blood, hundreds of thousands of neutrophils pick up their signals and move to the battlefield. Neutrophils are intense suicide warriors that only live to kill. They are so enthusiastic about killing that they kill themselves a few days after their birth so that they don't destroy your body from the inside. As soon as neutrophils arrive, they begin to spray deadly chemicals in bacteria and start killing them. In the process, they also cause damage to your healthy cells. But that is never their concern. They just want to kill the enemies and themselves and everything else that comes in between. While the battle is going on, your blood vessels send fluid streams towards the wound. You notice this as an inflammation when your thumb swells up a little and gets red and warm. This fluid brings a silent killer into the battlefield. Millions of complement proteins. We will talk about complement proteins another time, but for now you may just note that these are automated liquid weapons that kill the bacteria by ripping holes into them. If things go right, your first line of defense kills the invaders quickly. But sometimes the enemies are too strong. This is the hour of the dendritic cell, your immune system intelligence officer. While your soldiers were fighting, it was collecting samples of the enemy bacteria. After collecting the samples, it leaves the battlefield and enters the superhighway of your immune system, your lymph nodes. This dendritic cell coming from the battlefield is looking for a helper T cell, which is a commander cell within your immune army. But it is not looking for just any helper T cell. It is looking for the one that has the right weapon for the bacteria that infected your wound. So it goes around and rubs itself against every helper T cell it meets, and after a while, something clicks. A helper T cell recognizes the enemy bacteria sample. The dendritic cell is overjoyed and activates this helper T cell. I know what you are thinking. How come my immune system has a T cell against that specific bacteria that infected me? Well, your immune system has a perfect weapon against every possible disease in the universe, even the disease that will occur in future on Mars 400 years from now. This is an extremely intriguing fact and a story for another day, to be covered in another episode. For now, you should just know that you have billions of unique helper T cells and each has a weapon against every possible enemy. Now let's get back to the story. After the correct T cell is activated, your second line of defense awakes. But it's very slow. The activated helper T cell begins to clone itself over and over again until there are thousands of them. Now they split into two groups. The first group quickly moves to help out your soldiers and keep the Josh high for the fighting macrophages and neutrophils. The second group of the T cells, however, works on activating another line of defense, B cells, your antibody factories. Antibodies are protein super weapons that look like tiny crabs with two claws to grab enemies. Just like helper T cells, there are B cells in your body that are able to make just the right antibodies for every possible enemy. And the helper T cell is looking for exactly that B cell. After a day or two, the right B cell is found and it begins to clone itself. As soon as enough clones have been made, each B cell starts pumping out up to 2000 antibodies per second. About a week after you injured yourself and bacteria invaded, your second line of defense finally arrives in full force. The army begins to saturate the battlefield, pinching and killing the bacteria. The antibodies clump the bacteria, making them unable to move or fight, while the soldiers massacre the defenseless victims. As the last enemies are cleaned up, your soldiers realize that they are no longer needed and begin to kill themselves to save your body's resources. But not all of them. A few helper T cells remain and turn themselves into memory cells. They will guard the tissue for years, making sure that the same bacteria will never gain a foothold in your body again. Similarly, a few B cells will stay alive and keep producing a low amount of antibodies, making you immune against that bacteria, maybe for the rest of your life. One day you wake up and notice that the wound on your thumb has healed and now only a faint red mark remains. You were completely unaware of the drama that your cells had to deal with and the warfare that they had participated in. For you, the whole ordeal was just a slight annoyance and nothing else. While for the millions of cells inside your body, it was a desperate fight for life and death. So that was the brief regarding how our immune system actually works and what all things get activated every time you get hurt. This is all that I had to cover in this episode, and I'll see you in the next episode of the podcast. Till then, bye and take care.